Bryce, what are you doing?
Trying to, game.
What?
This game is really hard.
Pac-Man?
Yeah.
Dude, you're supposed to be playing the game for next week's episode of Arcade Bookshop.
I mean, I will. I'm really close to beating this.
Right. And what about the book?
Huh?
We're supposed to finish a book for the podcast too?
Oh yeah, I finished that last week. Yes!
Oh, did you finally beat it?
Uh-huh. The first level.
Oh boy.
Listen up now, we can leave on. Get ready for Arcade Bookshop. With your ball, we play a game, check it out. Don't be lame. Listen up now, we can leave on. Get ready for Arcade Bookshop.
You can listen to new episodes of Arcade Bookshop every other Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your pods. You'll always find us with a controller in one hand and a book in the other.
It is All Hallows Eve.
Yes.
But when the episode drops, it's like just a week later.
Yeah. Devil Knight.
Devil Knight. We actually have an episode, Becoming the Boogeyman, that came out on Halloween. So
That works.
I guess that works. But as of recording this, it is All Hallows Eve, and we are doing our annual toast to Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. Today, we do have fancy glasses,
We do fancy glasses.
which I'll post those tonight. So, fuck it. Go back. It's a week old.
Right.
But you'll see the fancy glasses we're drinking out of. But the drink is not so fancy. You
No.
think Edgar Allan Poe, you think Hennessy or a fine cognac or some kind of cordial even. Nah, not this year. Last year we did absinthe,
Yeah.
which was good.
Was it?
Maybe not for you. But this year, I just happened to have some apple pie moonshine homemade on hand. It is very good.
Nice. It's very nice.
It was very nice.
Very nice.
Very good. So if we are slurring a lot by mid-episode, that is why, because it does not taste like alcohol.
No.
And I know it's high proof. I just know it. It's going to be bad. As with tradition, I will be reading one of my favorite Edgar Allan Poe poems. I don't remember if I've done this one on the podcast before. I kind of feel like I have, but I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
I know I've done Ulaloom as its own episode because that is my all-time favorite. Next to The Raven, because The Raven is one of my... It's probably tied, but I'm not reading The Raven. That's a lot.
That's a big one, right?
That is a production. Yeah, that is a lot. Annabelle Lee's another one I enjoy, but for the spooky season, there are a few, and this one always comes to mind, which is Spirits of the Dead. I'm going to mute you, Spencer,
Fair.
while I read this one. And then I'll add some spooky music. I listened to an old guy read it earlier, so hopefully I can be old guy, but I don't think I'm going to be. I'm not good at these. The old-timey language. I'm going to take a sip of this shit, though.
You probably should. That'll loosen you up.
The cinnamon chunks in it will help me out. I like you're still talking like anybody can hear you. Fuck you. Fuck you over there. You're muted.
They can hear me.
You have to scream. I don't care. Sometimes your levels sound like that anyway. Spirits of the Dead by Edgar Allan Poe. Thy soul shall find itself alone mid dark thoughts of the gray tombstone, not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Be silent in that solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again, in death around thee, and their will shall overshadow thee. Be still. The night, though clear, shall frown, and the stars shall look not down from their high thrones in the heaven, with light like hope to mortals given, but their red orbs without beam to thy weariness shall seem as a burning in a fever which would cling to thee forever. Now are thoughts thou shalt not banish, now are visions ne'er to vanish. From the spirits shall they pass, no more like dewdrop from the grass. The breeze, the breath of God is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy, yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token, how it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries. And a toast to Mr. Edgar Allan Poe, who Spencer needs to read at some point, but has not yet.
I have not, no. It's the whole poem thing.
I hope that my reading of the poems would get you more into the poems, but the language, it's one of those things you kind of have to know some of the, like you'd have to study some of it because some of the words are not archaic, but they're definitely out of use. So anyway, today is a DBS episode.
Yes.
Halloween DBS. So we'll be talking about spooky stuff, scary stuff, things we like that are scary.
Mm-hmm. What kind of scary stuff, maybe?
Books, movies, TV, foods, motorcycles,
bears,
cars, bears, moose. Moose are scary. They're big.
Oh, yeah.
Ocean monsters.
Don't give a fuck.
Folklore monsters. Krakens. Japanese folklore monsters.
Ooh, those are creepy ones.
Demogorgons. Audi Gorgons. Any Gorgons. Butts. Pooping butts that nonstop poop.
Nonstop poop butts.
That could be terrible if you got dysentery. That has killed many.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, stick around and we will talk about probably none of those things.
No.
Maybe like the books and movies. I don't know
Yeah.
The butts too, probably.
Yeah.
You are listening to the Drunken Pen Reading Podcast. Sound like more like Paul Bear, but the poop. I don't think ghosts have flatulence, Spencer.
Why not? How do you think they float?
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am your host, Caleb James. With me today, Spencer, the Kilkenny Kelpie Killer Church.
Oh, wow.
For those who are unaware of what a Kelpie is, I'll just look up the standard definition. It's a folklore monster, by the way. A Kelpie or water Kelpie is a Scottish Gaelic, is a shape-shifting spirit inhabiting lochs in Irish and Scottish folklore. It is a horse monster, I believe, but it is creepy as fuck. Look up Kelpie sometime. Actually, we did it on an episode, I think, where we did folklore creatures.
Probably.
Most likely, yeah. What the fuck were we doing? I forget. Oh, that's the episode?
Yeah, that's the episode, guys.
Drink moonshine.
Moonshine, hey. Short episode, guys.
When it hits your lips, it's just so goddamn good. Why does it taste so good?
It tastes so good.
There's always the talk that, people like drink it, but then a lot of people are like, I don't like the taste.
Yeah. That is different.
You cannot not like the taste.
Because that's normally where I fall in. It's not necessarily like the getting the drunk and stuff that I don't mind. It's drinking the piss beer water that, that I don't enjoy doing.
Or the burnt whiskey, just the fire of whiskey or something. But no, that moonshine is that's an apple pie that somebody liquefied.
The last couple of times I've had to make sure small sips.
Yeah.
Small sips.
I just want to chug it.
Yeah, you just want to take big gulps because it tastes so good.
It tastes like a really good cider. For our non-American friends, a good cider here is a apple juice kind of thing. It's not a cider like in the UK. That's just booze, apple booze. I prefer apple booze.
Yeah.
So Spencer, we'll kick this off with what's your favorite spooky stuff? I don't know. You brought this up at the gym today. Barely.
Yes.
Didn't discuss it.
In between heavy sets of just like, so. Podcast idea. Boom, fell in the face.
Shit my pants.
Yeah.
There's a little blood in it. So I'm figuring we won't go in any order here.
Okay. Random.
Favorite scary novel.
Go. Ooh.
Oh.
You got to put The Shining up there. I'm trying to think of ones that actually kind of maybe creeped me out a little bit.
The creep factor or actually gave you a little bit of a start. Not a start because that's hard to say from a book, but, made you a little wary as you read. Ooh, or maybe you don't want to read that right before bed. You're going to have fucked up dreams. The Shining is a good one.
Yeah.
Because, you read a lot of Stephen King, but it's hard to say a Stephen King book that's actually... Because The Shining, honestly, as we go into the movie portion, is the movie scarier.
Oh, yeah, the movie, scarier just by the way of it being filmed and stuff
the atmosphere, and it's a scary fucking movie when I was a kid. And watching it as a grown-up, it's still kind of scary.
Yeah, it's creepy.
When that tub lady comes out and shit, whoa, those twins. Come play with us, Danny.
I know to keep with the Stephen King, it's not necessarily a horror, but it has an element of like eerie creepiness to it of just because of what we went through the past 2 years. With COVID, The Stand. Of just,
I can imagine, yeah.
of just a, this disease that can wipe out, most of the majority of the people on the planet and stuff like that,
It's a very underrated Stephen King read, and this is co-written with Joe Hill, In the Tall Grass.
Yeah.
That is actually very creepy.
Yeah, I did read that when it came out in a short story collection. I didn't read the whole collection, but I made sure to read that because I wanted to get around to check out the Netflix.
And the movie was good too, I thought.
I never got around to watching it, but like that's why I read it so I could get a chance to watch it whenever I could.
Yeah, the movie is pretty creepy as well. I enjoyed it. But yeah, that book, or it's like a novella,
something
short
like
story, long short story.
Yeah.
It was really creepy. I give I implore anyone to give that a read.
It kind of gave me like a Children of the Corns vibe almost.
Yeah. You know what I'm gonna do for you, Spencer?
You gonna bring up a list?
No, fuck this
Okay.
list. I'm gonna go on my Goodreads to see what I
What
got
you got?
categorized as horror. Because I actually, believe it or not, do not read a lot of horror
Yeah.
every year. As much as I love horror, I find that a lot of horror writing is bad.
Yeah.
It's not even so much that, because like obviously, here's where it comes in the weird confliction. So modern horror has the stories that would actually scare you if they're written well, but a lot of them aren't written well. And classic stories are written very well, but the subject matter is not scary anymore. Like, you think Frankenstein was scary and back then? Maybe. Now, no.
Well, I was just gonna say, I was thinking about bringing up Dracula that we read a few years ago.
At the beginning with the castle scene was very creepy when he's like Dracula's climbing down the side of the castle and stuff. That part, and then some of the cemetery stuff. There's moments in that book.
And I like because I went to the whenever Dracula kept on breaking into the one lady's house. And was like feeding off her, kept on feeding off of her and stuff like that. Like those had like a lot of like creepy kind of moments to it.
So I'm just gonna go down my list. I got 94 here. So,
oh wow.
So I'm gonna try to speed through this. Becoming the Boogeyman, I have classified as horror because it's a serial killer story, but that's more true crime, if
It's
anything.
suspense kind of.
Yeah, that's not actually scary. Though if you took it seriously, I could see how you could be like, Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead, I thought was terrible. I didn't even finish it. Horoscope, a Zodiac Anthology, Volume 3, out now.
Greatest book ever put out, right?
There's one story in there, in particular, Bathed in Starlight, by I think a guy named Caleb James Kay. Very creepy story.
Yeah. Well, what the creepy story or creepy guy?
Probably more creepier as the man. The man behind the pen's creepier. Because the mind that could come up with such a twisted tale must be mentally ill. Yeah. The Nice House on the Lake, Volume 1. That was a graphic novel. Yeah. That wasn't scary. Creepshow number 1. I don't know why that's on here. I read that in 2022. These don't go in order for some reason after a certain point on Goodreads. I don't know why. Obviously, that's not scary, but that would go into my movies when I was a kid. We'll get into it, but The Hitchhiker from Creepshow 1 or 2 really got me when I was a little kid. Chasing the Boogeyman, that's again more true crime. Though I can see somebody actually getting suspense. It is a good suspense. The Premature Burial by Edgar Allan Poe. The idea is obviously fucking...
Is that one of those buried alive
stories?
stories?
Yeah, one of the original buried alive stories, which actually happened a lot back then. So that is fucking it up. The Telltale Heart, that's more of just a fun, suspense.
Yeah.
Because it's more of is he going to get caught? You need to read some fucking Poe, you fucking honky.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Whoa.
I hate when I get racist on here.
At least you didn't call me cracker.
The Black Cat by the way, if you're wondering why there's so many, last year, I wanted to do it again this year, but last year I went through and just read my favorite Edgar Allan Poe stories. This year I wanted to read some more that I haven't, but I
haven't had time.
Got bogged down. So it's going to be a Christmas affair this year, I think. So The Black Cat's a good one. The Cask of Amontillado is one of my favorite stories. Deceased was a comic. It's a zombie DC comic. Maniac of New York, fun Jason-style comic. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Existential Dread. That is one of those stories I highly recommend checking out Harlan Ellison's reading on YouTube. One of the few times I'd say listen to it instead of read it. Because he does such a good job. And it's a story that is going to fuck your brain.
Yeah. Because is it like a full novel?
It's a novella.
Okay.
It's or not a novella. It's a short story, but I feel like it's very long. I read it and listened to it separate. I read it once or twice in my life, and then I also listened to it. But it's just one of those. Remember The Jaunt by Stephen King? The ending that's so fucked up. It's one of those deals where you're just like, it's not really horror, but the end makes it the most horrific event ever. Like Stephen King's Revival, the end is like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, what is this?
Jesus. So I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is definitely one of the freakiest stories I've ever come across, and that's saying something because I've read some fucked up shit. Gideon Falls, Volume 1, The Black Barn, that is creepy.
Yeah.
That is a Jeff Lemire graphic novel collection you can get now. There's a couple volumes, or you can get them individual comics if that's your bag. You just get
Or, if somebody was nice enough to get you 2 big hardback collections of the whole series.
I put them on my shelf.
Oh, are they? Did you at least
moved them.
Did you at least take the plastic off of them yet?
I didn't want them to get dusty. I'm telling you, once this fucking literary adventure I'm on is done, I'm going there first, probably. Not, but probably. Maybe. One day.
One day.
I'll get there. I just have to get in the mood. Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana. That was almost a splattercore porn type of deal.
Okay.
I gave it a 3 stars. Like, the characters aren't likable, but it is really creepy. I don't know if it was scary is the word, but it's creepy. The Jaunt, I actually gave 5 stars because the fucking ending of that was horrific. Later by Stephen King, I wouldn't categorize that as horror. I don't know why I have it in here as horror. That's more of a supernatural crime noir almost.
Yeah, thriller again.
Another Maniac of New York. Basket Full of Heads. That's a fun Joe Hill comic. Tomie by Junji Ito. I will say anything I've read by Junji Ito they're all very creepy.
Yeah, they're all like terrifying, aren't they?
Yeah, they'll fuck with you. Plunge by Joe Hill. I don't remember that one.
That's the one with like these boat people go to like I think save this wrecked ship and it ends up the crew. It's very kind of Cthulhu-ish, like
Yeah, it was like his H.P. Lovecraft stuff.
Kind of, yeah.
Which just fits because right after that is The Color Out of Space by H.P. Lovecraft. That is one of my favorite Lovecrafts. I gave it a 5 stars. That is creepy. The Forbidden by Clive Barker. I believe that is the Candyman story. English Candyman don't work for me.
No.
Because it's set in England. In English projects, everyone's white, Coolidge and Candyman.
Yeah.
It was okay, but I was just like, that's not the Candyman. I like Revival by Stephen King, one of my favorite books. Uzumaki by Junji Ito. The Spirals. That is fucked up. Everything's Eventual by Stephen King. That was a short story collection, I believe. Pieces of Madness by Casey Pierce. I think it was an indie author I got. I did not like that at all, apparently. The Savage Tales of Solomon Kane. That is sword and sorcery, but it has horror elements.
Yeah.
I think some of these are either miscategorized or I don't know what Goodreads does.
Well, I was gonna say, that's kind of becoming like the trickier thing with horror nowadays is that very rarely do you get something that's like solely horror.
Yeah. It's
like horror with a subgenre of something else, like horror sci-fi or horror suspense. Like, it's not like the 80s where you had just like Jason running around a campsite just
killing
murdering people having sex. Like,
for the sake of brevity, I'm going to skip through a lot of these now. Psycho the Werewolf by Stephen King and the art by Bernie Wrightson. That was a fun werewolf piece. I'm going to skip all these mangas. The Great Godpan by Arthur Machen. It's like Stephen King's, from my understanding, favorite horror story. He thinks it was the scariest thing. Ashley actually told me to read it because he said it was amazing. I read it and I gave it a 4 star, but it didn't scare me. Okay. Like that was the thing. It was supposed to be like really scary and it's like very gothic and stuff. So I guess it could. We got Dracula, The Haunter in the Dark by H.P. Lovecraft. A bunch of Nightmare Soup books, The Assassination,
Don't forget your favorite Frankenstein.
No, I'm going to skip that. Books of Blood, Volume 1 to 3 by Clive Barker. Very hit or miss. The first volume was good. It had more hits than misses. Some really, truly creepy stories and some fucking dumb ones.
Yeah.
Nailbiter was good. The Diary of a Madman. House of Leaves. I will say this, Spencer.
Yeah.
The actual story of House of Leaves, and you folks can listen to the IRC episode. We discussed this. Fucking creepy, man. Yeah. It's actually scary. The story itself, all the other stuff. Meh.
I wish I could just like get an abridged version of that where it's just like, I mean, again, you've talked about it and stuff a whole bunch of times, but like, does that stuff add to it? All the weird, like...
No. I mean, now that I know more about the ergodic literature, like the style and how you're supposed to read those, I would go back if I was to reread that and find the right way to read that book, and then it probably would be more enjoyable. Going into it is just like I'm a fan of fiction and, a good story being told. I really like the main story and everything else was just like, I don't know. It was just like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of get it, but it was beyond my pay grade. I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. That was a good story. Carrie was good by Stephen King. A bunch of zombie stuff. More H.P. Lovecraft. I'm feeling like I'm not finding anything that's really standing out here.
Yeah.
Ooh, the Hellbound Heart. I was a 5-star read. It was just as creepy as Hellraiser.
Okay.
If you're a fan of Hellraiser, read the Hellbound Heart. It is borderline scary. I don't scare, but if I
Yeah.
did, that
would do it.
It's the weird sex monsters, you know? It's like
Yeah.
something about sex monsters. It reminds me of that one episode of American Horror Story during the hotel saga where it just had a rapey dildo monster. With like a big spike, and he just graphically sexually assaults a man in the butt with his big rape dildo. It's terrible. It was like a big spike. Like, ooh, that's bad. Like, if that could happen,
Yeah.
I would not want that to happen. Like, that's an option. There's like an option that's door A and door B. You don't even know what's behind that. I'm just going door B.
Yeah.
Because it can't be that much worse than door A ever. I don't know.
Right.
Ooh, here's a very underrated one. The Outsider by H.P. Lovecraft's really good too, by the way. But The Pale Man by Julius Long. That's probably to this day my favorite horror story, or close to it. Julius Long was like a attorney. He had maybe a handful of stories published, but he wasn't a prolific writer or anything. But it's just such a creepy story because it's a man. I think he's either like sick or he's like an older guy, and his firm or something wants him to take a vacation. So he's staying in this inn, and he notices there's this pale man that's staying there, and he kind of wants to talk to him, but it's like weird. And he notices like every day or couple of days, the guy is a room closer.
Oh, I think I remember you talking about that before.
And then he realizes, spoiler, he realizes like, either death or the devil or something like this, every room he's inhabiting is because he not necessarily took the life. I'm thinking he's death.
Yeah.
So they die and he takes them, and then he's at the end he's like one door down, or I think it ends with like a knock. Something creepy. It's really good. And that's another one. I actually listened to that before I read it because I listened to it's called the Ghastly Tales podcast, and it's a guy with like a cool like Irish or Scottish accent, and he reads horror stories. He read that, and that's how I became aware of it. And I was like, this is really fucking good. And then I went and read it on my own. Dreams in the Witch House is a creepy one too. That's a Lovecraft. The Shadows over Innsmouth is probably my favorite Lovecraft story. I recommend you read it if you ever get to it.
I think that one I did read.
There's like fish people and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we got, Spencer? Skipping more H.P. Lovecraft. There's too many of them. That's when I could see there's so many stories. That's when I was going through that collection. Okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough good stuff. So, out of anything, so what, have you come up with anything since then? Or have you just listened to me ramble?
Yeah, I've just been listening to you ramble.
Books are the hard one. Movies and stuff are easier. But
books, because as you were talking, I did realize like this, especially like this year alone, I've read a lot of just kind of like thriller and suspense, more things. Like I did read this. It's kind of a horror novel. It's called The Darknet by Benjamin Percy.
Yeah,
and it deals with like there's these devil hunters, and like there's this one guy who has this cult that they're trying to find a way to like possess people by using like the internet or something like that. I forget, but it was really good. I was gonna be one of the books that I was gonna try to recommend to you next year once you get past your challenge that you're on now.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. I don't know if that'll be next year the way this is going.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. See, horror is such a specific genre because when you think of like horror novels specifically, because most Stephen King I don't actually classify as horror.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would classify it as horror necessarily.
You think more just like a supernatural suspense?
Yeah. Like The Shining's horror. Carrie's not. Maybe Pet Sematary. I guess Pet Sematary could probably, that would probably classify, but there's just a lot of stuff that I feel like falls off the edge. Because when I think of horror, I think of like absurdly. There's a difference between horror and then even like crime. We talked about I think maybe last episode. Horror can often be something that can't happen.
Yeah.
And then other stuff like crime or suspense or thrillers could be things that could happen. So, horror is your demons and your possessions and stuff like that. Even your zombies. But let's move on to movies. Favorite horror movie? Go.
This is gonna be a hard one too because like growing up, like I was never like a big fan of like the Jasons and like that kind of stuff, like what I mean. And I don't know why, like because like it wasn't like I was ever like turned off by like the gore or the stuff like that. It was just like one of those things to where like it just wasn't it didn't tickle my fancy. Man, it's been so long since I probably watched like an actual horror movie.
They don't make them very well anymore. There's one that really sticks out above others, and it's another one that's probably a unique pick that a lot of people wouldn't choose, but I think it's probably one of the best in the genre, 1408.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my favorites because it's so fucking creepy.
Yeah, and it's a haunted hotel room.
And it legit scared me, and I didn't watch that until I was an adult, and it was like one of those things, like not just jump scares, like just the atmosphere and everything going on. It's like, holy fuck, that would be terrifying to be in that situation.
You know, one we were talking about watching but never got to this year was that Boogeyman.
Yeah.
That's based off of that Stephen King short story.
I actually talked to my sister today. She watched it, and she said it sucked.
Oh, really?
And she loves Stephen King books,
Yeah.
so I would take her word on that.
Right.
And she loves just horror things in general. As far as like the classics, the first Nightmare on Elm Street got me.
Yeah.
I watched it when I was like 5. So.
Right, yeah.
But that actually was one of those ones I had nightmares about a little bit.
Well, and I mean, that's kind of like the design of the movie. Like,
Yeah. One that kind of fucked me up for a long time, again, because I watched it when I was like 4 or 5, was Jaws.
Yeah.
Just because thinking of something lurking deep in the water that you can't see.
That's one of the books that I've been meaning to ask to see, like, if you wanted to, like, read. Is like, because, you know, Jaws is based off of a book.
I know, we should definitely. I actually have that book. It's in one of my boxes. This is probably a shitty copy. I have to buy a new one. I'm sure it's all yellow page.
Right.
The original Friday the 13th didn't do it for me. And the sequels, I always liked Jason, but they weren't scary to me. They were just fun. Same with Michael Myers, like the Halloween stuff. I never thought any of those were scary, other than the jump scares, obviously. I always thought The Exorcist sucked ass.
Really?
Never was I'm not a big possession fan anyway, but I just thought The Exorcist was very overrated. I don't know why people, maybe if you are religious, it would get you, but honestly, like if a devil inhabited my body, all right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, and also too, I think that one had a lot to do with like the time that it was made, and just like that the effects that they used.
Yeah.
And to you know, to make that stuff, because I think at that time now it's pretty like not groundbreaking, but you know, probably pretty advanced.
It broke Linda Blair's back, and she was like 13.
Yeah.
Fucked up. Like I was saying about the Creep Show, because those were just fun anthology movies. Right. But the Hitchhiker one specifically actually got me when I was younger. I'd probably a little older, 8 or 9 or something when I watched that. But just he gets run over a bunch and he's real gross. And he just keeps saying, "Thanks for the ride, ladies." He comes out of nowhere like, ah! Just the thought of some fucking supernatural being that it just keeps coming.
Right.
No matter what you do, it just keeps coming. That freaks me out.
You know what I liked back in the day, what I thought was okay, was the original Jeepers Creepers.
The first Jeepers Creepers was creepy.
Yeah.
Before we found out the director was a creeper, it was actually a creepy movie. Justin Long getting murdered hard. Yeah. It was fucked up. They take your eyeball.
Would you consider? Do you remember a movie I think came out around that same time, Joyride? It had Paul Walker in it, and Zach something. I think he's normally like a funny guy, but it was like they somehow started making fun of somebody. Like they had one of the radio, like the truck radios, like the the breaker
and
one
like chases them or
something like that. Yeah, I remember that one being pretty creepy.
There's one from 2023 called Joyride. It's a comedy adventure, so probably not that one.
No, probably not that one.
No, fucking come on. There's a bunch. They made it. Oh, they made 3 of them.
They might. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that seems like something they'd try to make a series out of.
I think I watched that, but I don't remember much about it. The first Hellraiser and the second Hellraiser, I was very absorbed into the world because it's so creepy. The actual movies themselves, man, not so. I didn't find them scary. I just it was enraptured with the like the labyrinth version of hell and stuff like that, and just these creatures that come from a different dimension. I thought that was very unique and it was cool. But modern movies, not too much. Spencer,
No.
It Follows was pretty good. That was creepy. Just the idea of you fucking put your penis in someone and then a weird entity just chases you to forever. Just forever. It reminds me of, I want to say it was like the Shinagawa, or I forget what it was called, but it was this series of YouTube videos back in the early days of YouTube, I think this guy made, and they were very well done. And it was literally this demon thing that was chasing this guy, and it's played for laughs, but it's like kind of scary. It just follows him and hits him with a spoon. Like that's all it does. It just hits him with a spoon, but relentlessly. So he's just going to the edges of the world trying to get rid of this thing, and like it just So basically, it follows before it follows. But just the idea of like this fucking thing that is just relentless, like because you get exhausted. And that's like a primordial thing where in our DNA, one thing humans have is endurance. So we chased animals down until they got exhausted and then we killed them. The idea of something doing that to us is terrifying.
Right.
That's why Michael Myers is continuously following you at a slow pace and he's always right behind you. Or Jason always following you. No matter how much you run, he's always right there. That's why it's scary because you're going to get exhausted and then you can't fight back.
Right. You know what we really should have done before this episode? We should have messaged our buddy Tim.
Yeah, he'd be a good one.
And got to, because he does a thing every year where he watches a new horror movie each day of October each year.
That's gotta be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of horror movies. That's gonna be tough to do that every year.
Well, he says that there's more and more each year. So,
I mean, quality wise.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's a factor or not.
There is a lot. I mean, we have a lot of friends who are really into horror. Like, I'm into horror, but I don't, like they get horror tattoos. Mm-hmm. Their clothes are all horror. They have horror themed rooms. I wish I could be into something that much, but I don't think it's in my DNA to be the horror guy necessarily. But I do appreciate good horror.
You're the fucking Lord of the Rings guy.
I'm not, though, because a real Lord of the Rings guy, this room that you're sitting in would be a hobbit hole.
You were close last year, or the beginning of this year, whenever that was. The last time you read the trilogy.
I got the mug.
You will get, but there was.
I do have the precious.
There were talks of things that you were like, as you were in the midst of reading, there was like, I want to get one of these. It'd be cool to have this. Like, I wouldn't mind a robe.
Spencer, I say this with all sincerity. Shut up. Mind your business. As Joey Swole would say, mind your business. Television. There's not a lot of good horror television I've come across.
I don't know if it actually counts or not, but like, those, especially those first couple of seasons of Dexter, it's more kind of drama. But I mean, there was at least one or two people would get murdered an episode, like they dealt with serial killers and stuff like that.
There's if we're counting like Netflix, because those are shows now, because I say TV shows, it's not really TV shows, it's streaming shows. Basically. Like Michael Flanagan has a lot. Like he has the Haunting of Hill House was really good. I didn't watch Bly Manor, but I didn't realize Bly Manor was like the Turn of the Screw. So if I never read that. So I think I read that, but it's been so long I don't really remember. So if I got to reread that, I get all the references. I just watched Fall of the House of Usher, his newest one, which is all Edgar Allan Poe theme. Yeah. Fucking awesome if you're an Edgar Allan Poe fan. So I really appreciate that kind of stuff. But again, not scary.
You know what that reminds me of? Because like people at the comic book shop, they were talking about it. And it reminds me how a couple years ago, Hulu did a TV series, the last like 2 seasons, called Castle Rock.
Yeah, I heard that was really good.
The first season was, I never got around to watching the second season, but I know like I can comment on the first season was really good. But what it was a Stephen King show, but there wasn't any Stephen King stories, but there were all these Stephen King elements and places and characters that have been in other stories and stuff, but it was something completely new, but with all of the ward and the toys and stuff like that. Is that kind of what it was like?
Yeah. Here's a crazy thought.
Now, was it past like, was it set in the present or was it set in
It was present.
Okay.
Which is very cool. It was a modern take on everything. Most of it was about like the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay.
And rich people fucking over regular Americans, but in a cool way, all based on Edgar Allan Poe stuff. But here's a very interesting thought you brought up there about, because like it's easy to do an Edgar Allan Poe show with all the references and everything because he's been around, he's been dead for over 100 years. Stephen King's still alive.
Yeah.
So the fact that you could do a show that has all these references to his work just shows you how prolific he is.
Right.
Could you imagine trying to do that with like a George R.R. Martin or a Neil Gaiman even, or any of these guys, or it's like, hey, can we do a whole universe on this guy's work? I mean, it'd be kind of tough to do a show. Like
how would you bring it together?
Yeah, but like Stephen King, because he actually, created a universe and then, kept things in it and stuff. It's just cool because like he can make more shit, and then they'll just have more shit to make.
And I mean, like, with one of like a lot of his stories, they take town in like small town America.
Yeah,
that's easy to to recreate, for a movie or TV, set. It's not like this huge, like, because if like you did the Railroad Modern, with the Game of Thrones, you would have to have these elaborate
Fantasy
sets and and dragons flying around for people to give a shit about.
Well, one thing I didn't like about, and I don't remember if I talked about this on the episode of Arcade Bookshop, which drops on Halloween, so it'll be out by the time this episode drops.
One of them's out already.
That's the Resident Evil one.
Yeah.
Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead was very pretentious New York. Like, because it's set in New York, and then it's like a zombie apocalypse in New York, how original, a big city and stuff. But just everything about it just like makes you think of like big city, we're fancy kind of shit. And I like stories that are maybe just because we're coming from a small town, but I like small town America stories because it's more relatable.
Right.
And I feel like if you're doing horror, the horror is more horrific because you could actually have a close, because like you think about a person in New York. Okay, we could focus on this one person, but there's fucking millions of people here. They're all living their own story.
And then also, too, like, a lot of times, like, like, when they're describing things in, like, the smaller town kind of stories, even if, like, you might not necessarily, like, have a landmark or a thing or something like that where you live, it's easier for you to vision that, other than when, like, when people are talking about, like, take stories in New York, and they're like, oh, no, I was walking down 38th Avenue on the corner of da-da-da, and I'm just like, that's a busy street, I bet. There's a lot of people walking there, like,
Well, another thing, too, when you're in, like, a small town America and that's, like, the setting for your story and it's a horror or crime, most likely the person that your protagonist probably knows who's doing it. Like, they might not know who's doing it at the moment, but, like, they're going to know the person.
Right, by the end, yeah.
But if you have, like, it could be anybody in New York.
It could just be some fucking psycho.
Yeah, it's not that, it's not that fun. That's the reason why most like horror movies and horror franchises are always set in like these small town suburbs or Crystal Lake and the woods. They're always
something like remote.
Yeah, a smaller setting. Even like Hellraiser is like just one house, or then the second one's a hospital. But then when it gets shitty, they go into the city. And, it's just like, I know, give a fuck.
I'd say there was a TV show on FX a few years ago that I watched the first couple of seasons of called The Strain, and it was really cool because it was vampires, but it was almost like the vampires get passed through as like almost like a disease. Like they have like these worms and stuff, and like you know what I mean. It's, from what I remember, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I'm gonna suck the blood out of your neck and I'm either gonna feed you or turn you. It's just like you could cut them and like the things could come on if they landed on like buried and like you know what I mean.
Yucky.
And like I said, I watched the first couple of seasons. I just, for some reason, I fell off of it. But I was enjoying what I watched of it. It's based off of a series of books, too. But I kind of heard the books might not be as good because I think they were just kind of rushed to be as like a, look, we can turn this into a movie. Like what they do with comic books a lot. Like it's just kind of like a concept kind of thing.
Well, Spencer, I heard that was pretty good. I heard a lot of people like that. What we're gonna do here?
Okay.
I'm gonna mute myself,
yourself,
so I get some more shine.
Oh, okay.
And I want you while I'm muted, and I'll hear you from across the room.
Okay.
Tell what you think would make like the things that scare you, like that you would read in a horror story that might actually make you go. Ooh.
Okay.
So you could do that now, and I actually have a very sophisticated topic to end the episode on.
All right.
So, but it's not very long. So
okay.
Drinking a lot.
Okay. Okay, so the things that kind of would make that would maybe make me go bump in the night, that would give me a chill down my spine. Yeah, you can get my spine chilled. I think like if you could do almost kind of like the killer thing, but like on a much like smaller scale, that could be done creepy very well, or like the stalkery kind of stuff, because like anything with like a really like creepy weirdo kind of like kind of thing, like like a crazed fan of any it doesn't matter of a sports person or just any famous known person. I think doing stuff with like a stalker, that could be done very well.
Essentially, your life is in the control of someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything like I mean, like, I don't want to say like ghost stories, but like you could do like some of that weirder, creepier stuff done, properly. Can really, like I said, not like necessarily like the Jasons and things and stuff like that, but like I said, just like more grounded, down to earth stuff that could actually, imagine happening to you.
Yeah. What always gets me is the deep water stuff, like the unseen.
Yeah.
Like you just get thrown in the ocean at night, even if you have a life jacket on. What the fuck is under you? A whole world of monsters.
Yeah, and then like if you're far enough out, you don't know which way is the coastline.
Nope.
You could be spending like 3 days trying to swim one way, and you're just
going farther out.
Yeah, you're just going farther out. Yeah.
Believe it or not, deep woods is not a bother for me.
No.
Bears would be.
Yeah.
If I ran into a bear, I'd fucking shit every part of my ass out. But like, especially like a grizzly bear or a polar bear, like if you're in the not Antarctic, Alaska or somewhere. But there's one fucking gnat.
Right.
So, you know why he wants to shine?
Oh, that probably is what it is.
Maybe came out of the shine.
Maybe. Yeah.
But just the idea of being in like the dark woods alone scares a lot of people because it's something in our DNA.
Yeah.
That never really bothers me. Like I'd probably be freaked out. Like if you told me to go in the woods at night,
and you start hearing like sounds and stuff.
But I grew up going in the woods at night, so that doesn't bother me. And a lot of people are scared of going into the cemeteries at night. I used to walk my dog Nitro in the cemetery by my old house at night. I loved it. I made a tradition that on Halloween, especially when it was like real misty and stuff, a lot of Halloweens I would take him out at like midnight and just walk because it was like one of the cemeteries always open and it was like pitch black, couldn't see anything, and I'd just walk around. It was creepy as fuck, but I always liked it because here's the thing: unless there's a zombie outbreak of the living dead, come out of the ground,
what's gonna happen?
The safest place is probably a cemetery because there's nobody around. Everybody's dead.
I think with the cemetery, I think what it is that what freaks people out is just this like
facing your mortality.
Yeah, just like there's nothing but dead people in the ground over here. Now, granted, just about any place where we're at, like there's probably dead people in the ground under your house.
No, there's not. There's not.
Before you got here.
Oh, yeah.
Before you got here.
Yeah, there could be. In fact, it probably is from before I got here. So if anybody in the police department's listening
and finds any bodies anywhere in the
you're in law enforcement and you're listening to this and there ever has to be an excavation in my basement, that was here before. It just assuming that there's nothing, but just in case there was.
But I think like that's what it is with cemeteries is that like you could literally just like 6 feet below me it's just oceans of dead people in different forms of decay.
I kind of like it. Makes me feel randy. No, that's not.
Nah, hey, that's a thing you don't want to admit online.
What about just once a year? This time of year. So anyway, Spencer, here's what I'm gonna end the episode with. What do you feel about the sublime? People always talk about beauty or horror, and a lot of times you see something and it's like, oh, that's pretty, or ooh, that's scary. But the sublime is something else. And I like the sublime, Spencer, more because you find it in a lot of Gothic literature.
Okay.
So you think of Frankenstein, what gets you is the sublime. Here's what my definition of the sublime is.
I was going to say, yeah, because I kind of know what you're going in, but I think I might need a further explanation if you...
Well, if you see a rainbow, that's beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. But something sublime, think of like a sea storm.
Okay.
Giant waves. Think of misty mountains. Something enormous. Something that's super dangerous. Something that's very beautiful but can fucking kill you. That would be the sublime. So I find the sublime is probably the most terrifying because it shows how insignificant you are. I think that's the one thing humans can't comprehend. That's why H.P. Lovecraft's work is so popular still, is because you can't comprehend the size of the cosmos.
Okay.
You can't comprehend what it would be like to come face to face with the sun.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you die, but
yeah,
so that goes with getting dropped into the ocean. The ocean is beautiful from a distance, but if you really look at it, you're like, that's full of monsters. Those waves are gigantic. I would die within an hour of falling in there.
Yeah.
Ooh, that waterfall. That is a beautiful waterfall. I'm taking pictures of it. But if you stop and think, if I fell down that fucker, it's over.
Right.
So the things that I think really scare humans the most, and most people ignore it, is things that are out of your control. So
at first I was going to go, when you first was describing the sublime, I was thinking of like like severe like thunder and lightning storms.
That is also the sublime because you can't
control that. But like if you're ever like out on your porch, you know, you got a good porch that, you know, has like a, you know, like a roof or whatever, and you're on your and you're just watching like just you see the flash and the and you can, depending on how close, you can feel the rumble a little bit in the floor,
electricity in the air
and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, last time I was at Virginia Beach, I was drunk as fuck in the lifeguard tower at night, and a fucking huge lightning storm came over the beach, and it didn't reach me yet. It was over the ocean, and I was watching it, and that was the sublime. I was like, that's fucking beautiful, but that is terrifying because if it reaches me, I'm done. I got to get the fuck out of here. So I always enjoy that kind of stuff, but it's very hard to convey in horror. I think when it's done well, though, it really transcends horror. It reaches you on like a deeper level because it's something that you're in awe of. And what's more scary than to be in awe of something? Yeah. Because like you could be, you know, you see a bear, you're fucking scared of it, but you're also kind of in awe of it because it's so powerful.
Well, I was just going to say like wild, like again, like out in the woods, if you were like hiking, and then you just see like a horde of like coyotes or a bear or something where it's just like you're far enough away and you're just like, it hasn't seen me yet. I should probably leave, but like I just can't stop looking at it. Like,
yeah, it's like it was cool, but it's death.
Yeah,
humans have a weird fascination with death because it's something we all face. No matter what, you're gonna like. You have to find it, man. You have to find your way in life, but it always ends the same.
Yeah,
rich, poor, Christian, Muslim, black, white, doesn't matter. You end in the same way. Now, the way you end, is, you know, that could be vastly different. It could be grisly. It could be peaceful. But we all end in the same place. Fucking dead.
Dead's a dead.
So that's how we're going to end the podcast. Sometimes dead is better. So if you like this episode, and why wouldn't you? We talked about stupid shit and drank moonshine, and it's good fucking shine.
Yeah, good shine.
Good shot! I got 2 more jars of it, but I'm not gonna. It's Monday. I can't be drinking that. And I gotta save some for Halloween. If you want to listen to more of this stuff, let us know. You can check us out at DPW Podcast on X/Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and YouTube, and wherever the fuck else you can find us. You can check out my work at CalebJamesK.com. And Spencer, if you want to see what he is up to, it is fucking mythical. He's on OnlyFans at Spencer the Kilkenny Kelpie Killer Church. Fucking killing mythological. Is that even legal? I don't see how it could be illegal, but
I just gotta get my tags.
Your mythological folklore monster tags. Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening and happy Halloween.
Hey, Caleb, you wanted to see me?
Spencer, my good fellow. I've been expecting you.
Yeah, so did you want something or?
Want? Goodness, no. Require.
Require?
Yes. I require your services for the briefest of moments.
Okay.
Surely you can see the predicament I'm in.
Well, actually, no, I can't. I lost my glasses at the pub last night.
A pub, you say? Surely you can't be serious.
As serious as a fought during a recto, because I am. And stop calling me Shirley.
Rightio. Anyway, if your spectacles were affixed upon your face, you'd see that I, the host of the most prodigious writing and books podcast in the business, has been immobilized by a rather substantial stack of fallen folios.
What?
My to-read pile finally fell on me while I was taking a nap.
But you're on a podcast table.
I hardly see how that matters.
And you're naked.
I hardly see how that matters.
Dude, your hairy ass is touching my drink coaster.
I hardly see how that matters.
It matters to me.
Can you just unbury me?
No way. Your reckless reading got you into this mess.
Blockhead! Wait! Don't go! There's a copy of War and Peace wedged in my taint. Spencer! Can you at least leave me a bottle of whiskey? Hello? Can't get enough drunken nonsense? Listen to new episodes of the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast every Tuesday wherever you get your pods.